So in today's video, I'll give you a quick snapshot of what a factoring company is, how that relationship works with new freight brokers. I'll then go into one big advantage and disadvantage of using a factoring company. And then I want to give you my opinion on whether or not a new freight broker should engage in a relationship with a factoring company. And then as a new freight broker, if you decide a relationship is best for you, what's the duration of that relationship? How long should you be in relationship with a factoring company? So sit back, relax for a minute, and enjoy the video. So now, if this is your first time here, my channel shares the challenges and successes of small business ownership through my eyes as a freight broker. If you're interested in learning more about the freight broker business, or maybe you're considering another small business, but you want to know what it's really like to be a 24/7 entrepreneur, then you're in the right place. Subscribe to my channel for weekly videos released on Mondays about overcoming the challenges of a freight broker business and winning as small business owners. I believe in starting small and growing big, and if you like the content on this channel, please smash that like button, share the video with your network, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be notified when I release new videos. So now let me give you a quick snapshot of how a factoring company works. Remember before I told you that a business is about making money. So a factoring company is a business, so they are about making money. And what they realize is that there's an opportunity amongst business owners like me, like you, if you have a small business or you have a freight broker business. They understand that there's an opportunity to service the problems that you have. You have a problem and they have a solution to your problem. They say, hey, Brandon over at Alliance Logistics, I know that you're a new freight broker and I know that you have a problem and I have a solution. Your problem is you're new and you don't have a whole lot of cash on hand and you have to pay invoices. You have to pay your carriers when they completed loads. Now, you can do that in one of two ways. You can have a set of cash of yours that's on the sideline that you're ready to pay carriers with, a big nest egg that could exceed $50,000 every month. That's not a whole lot at all for a new freight broker. So that means you would have to have $50,000 on the sideline and you're going to pay carriers on your own. Or you can use our services and we'll let you focus on your core responsibilities, moving loads, serving your customers, and we're focused on making sure that your customers get paid on time. They stand in the gap for you and say, hey, we're going to purchase your invoices and we're going to pay your invoices. And not only are we going to pay your invoices, we're going to even pay your commission. So you don't have to wait to get paid from the shipper. We'll take that on. We'll wait and let you focus on your responsibility, get your money to growing quicker than you would having to wait on it. We'll get you that money in your hand so you can utilize it, because you're a small business. You're going to need to utilize your money. And in addition to that, we'll make sure that quick pay services are available to you and connect you with EFS account or Comdata account. As a parent company, you'll be able to come underneath our company and have your own EFS account or Comdata account set up so that you can make lumper fee payments or fuel advancements. How does that sound? So now, you being the savvy business owner you are, you just have a couple questions you want to pose to the freight factoring company. You say, hey, sounds like a really good service and my company could benefit from that type of service, but I didn't hear you say how much it was going to cost me. And wouldn't it be better off for me if I just go through a bank and get a business line of credit or a business loan and get a better rate, or can you offer those same rates? And last but not least, when I give up control of my invoices, am I giving up total control where you're invoicing my shipper now and you're having access to all of my information? I don't have any control over that. How does that work? So really good questions. Question number one, you said, how much is it going to cost you? Well, it's going to cost usually from 2.5% to 5% depending on the freight factoring company you're using. When I used a factoring company from 2015 to 2018, I used a company called Trans Am Financial Solutions, and I paid 5% for each of the years that I was working with that company. Now, of course, after you've worked a year or two, you may want to go back to the table and renegotiate to try to get lower rates. And especially if you've increased volume, if you got a bigger volume now, it's very possible that you can get a decrease in rates. But usually what you're going to see is about 2.5% to 5% depending on the company that you use. You also asked a very good question about, hey, so wouldn't I be in a better position if I decided to work with a bank instead of working with a factoring company? Wouldn't I get better rates? Yes, it's very likely that you're going to get better rates with a bank. But the question is, will you qualify for a loan? Will you qualify for a business loan line of credit if you are a new company? And most of us as new companies, the company is not producing anything yet. You don't have any established business credit. You're very likely not to be approved for a business line of credit or a business loan. So that is the purpose of having a factoring company. And your third question you asked, would you be giving up total control of your invoices? And the answer to that question is yes, in most cases. And most times you're going to be giving up total control of your invoices, and your factoring company will now be invoicing your shipper. You will not be doing that action. You will invoice the factoring company, and the factoring company will directly invoice your shipper, so they have access to all of your shipper's information. Now, there are several advantages and disadvantages of having a freight factoring company, but for the purpose of this video, I want to stick to what I see as the greatest advantage to having a factoring company and the greatest disadvantage to having a factoring company. So let's start out with the greatest advantage. The greatest advantage, in my opinion, is I get the 100% freedom to move as many loads as I possibly can without having to worry about how I'm going to pay for those loads. The factoring company is going to ensure that those loads are paid for, and all I have to do is worry about focusing my attention on getting more and more freight from my shipper without worrying how I'm going to pay for it. That is a huge luxury, in my opinion. Now, this next one is a huge disadvantage, in my opinion, and it's one that I struggle with. But it's kind of like one of those necessary evils, and that is I have to give up total control to the freight factoring company when it comes down to my invoices. I have to give them access to my shipper. Now, I never want to do that, because that's giving the shipper or giving the freight factoring company all of my shipper's information. Their direct emails, their direct phone numbers. They get to see what exactly I'm bidding on those loads, what my shippers are paying for those loads. They get to see everything. So they got all of the information. So now, do you think that it's fair game if they say, okay, well, I'm going to go and start proposing to those shippers that I can move those loads for X amount of dollars? Sure it is, because they don't sign anything with me saying, hey, they're not going to go after our shippers. You know, so that's just something that you kind of accept as a necessary evil to get you through your cash deficiency. And once you get in a position where you start to accumulate cash, the whole idea is to terminate that relationship after some time. Now, that leads me into, when do I think it's a good time to start to move away from your freight factoring company? Well, this is how I looked at it. That's going to be determined by you and your business, what's happening in your business. But I think the sooner you move away from a factoring company, the better for you. Because when you look at it, if you're going to continue to give your factoring companies that kind of advantage, that is a huge, huge bone you're throwing them. Because what you have to understand is that factoring companies are not just factoring companies. For example, I told you I work with Trans Am Financial. Well, Trans Am Financial is also a trucking company. You know, so we're direct competitors. So they'll definitely use that information, I'm sure, and go and propose to those customers, my customers, what they can get loads done for. Maybe they can get them done cheaper than they see that we're paying for them. So it's just a lot of information that you give away when you're using a factoring company. You're giving it directly to your competitors sometimes. So that's a huge one that you definitely need to be looking for, to get rid of sooner than later. And how I look at that, for me, it was a 3-year period. I really wanted to leave at the 2-year mark, but I hadn't accumulated enough cash at that point. And, we had a business line of credit at the 3-year mark. I got a business line of credit, but I wanted sufficient amount of cash plus the business line of credit to be able to pay for those invoices. And the 3rd year was about the time that we got there. So I think that, year 3 may be a time that you may be able to look at, maybe a little sooner, maybe a little later. You would have to look at your specific situation. And finally, would I recommend that new freight brokers start a factoring company relationship? Absolutely yes. And the reason for that is because I feel like the advantages outweigh the disadvantage. Even though I have a really big, problem with giving my information to an outside agency, with the factoring company, it's going to allow for me to move loads freely without having to worry about how I'm going to pay for them. So I'm willing, to go ahead and accept that trade-off. But of course, it's only for a period of time. But yes, I would recommend that new freight brokers use factoring companies for that reason. Now, if you have a surplus of cash, then you may not need a factoring company. But if you don't have that cash, definitely a factoring company would help you. So a quick summary of what we just talked about. Number one, we talked about what a factoring company is and how does it work. Number two, we talked about the advantages and disadvantages of using a factoring company. Number three, we talked about the duration, how long you should use a factoring company if you decided to use one. And number four, I talked about whether or not I would recommend new freight brokers use factoring companies. So now that's what I wanted to share with you today. I hope this video has been helpful. If you're interested in learning more about the freight broker business, I want you to go over to my website at www.brandonthefreightbroker.com. Wait for the pop-up to appear and then you'll have the opportunity to sign up for my free 5-video series. What this will do is give you the unique opportunity of watching me as I go through the process of moving loads. Let you see everything that I'm doing, the customers that I'm talking to, what I'm saying to those customers. You get to see the entire process. So go to the website at www.brandonthefreightbroker.com and register now. And don't forget, there are a lot of people out here talking about how freight brokers move loads and make money. But there's one guy who's walking the walk, talking the talk, and showing you how it's done. That's me. See you at the top because the bottom is much too crowded.